The Marvel Universe is filled with all kinds of heroes. You step out of your home and you might see a certain webhead slinging by, or a man who's cast aside the concept of fear hopping across rooftops. There's so many heroes out and about that there might be a few you've never even heard of. But for today's character, if you want to find him, you need only look to the stars. Created by writer Marv Wolfman, Richard Rider was a mild-mannered teenager living a relatively normal life in the Long Island, New York town of Hempstead. Unbeknownst to Richard, a ship heading to Earth containing the last surviving Nova Corps Centurion would soon change his life forever. Roman Day was a member of Xandar's elite force known as the Nova Corps. However, Xandar and the Nova Corps had been just recently ravaged by an intergalactic pirate known as Zor, leaving Day as the lone survivor, but mortally wounded as he tracked Zor to his hiding spot on Earth. Knowing that he didn't have long, he transmitted his powers as a Nova Centurion down to a random person on Earth, hoping that whoever received his powers would take up the cause and finish his fight. Of course, this green beam of light hits Richard, knocking him unconscious and hospitalizing him. Day, still hanging on to life, telepathically contacts Richard during this period and tells him of the situation, leaving Richard understandably confused once he awakens. The day after, while still pondering the situation, Day's final gift to Richard suddenly manifests, his Nova Corps uniform. From this day forward, Richard Rider's life would never be the same, becoming the man called Nova. Nova's superhero career started off pretty humble, staying primarily on Earth and helping out other New York-based heroes when he could, coining himself as the Human Rocket thanks to the incredible speeds he could fly at. Back out in space, Xandar would be rebuilt, and Nova would be called in to serve to protect it, taking him into space. Nova jumped at the chance, trading his normal high school existence for a life of intergalactic combat. This lifestyle started wearing thin on Richard though, who requested to be allowed to go back to Earth, though doing so would strip him of his powers. Back on Earth though, he discovered that his peers had moved on and that technically, he was a high school dropout now, having left for space before he could graduate. Also, Xandar got destroyed again. This is not going to be the last time you hear me say that. Left without his powers and too embarrassed to finish school, Rich instead took on retail jobs to get by, until one day he was encountered by the hero Night Thrasher, who proceeded to throw him off a building. This wasn't a random act of violence, however, but a calculated gamble. The adrenaline rush of this ordeal reactivated Nova's thought-to-be-gone superpowers, and having the ability to perform superheroics again, Night Thrasher asked him to join the superhero team he was putting together, the New Warriors. After regaining the respect of the public after his absence on Earth and getting a new costume courtesy of Night Thrasher, Nova became a valuable member of the New Warriors, though he'd also run into a Nova Corps member that happened to survive Xandar's most recent destruction, Garthan Sal. He'd assist in helping restore the planet, and in turn the Nova Corps as well, going from being one of a few corpsmen to one of many. That said, Nova found himself stretched thin between his New Warriors duties and his responsibilities as a part of the Nova Corps. He was stripped of his powers again after ignoring a summoning from the Nova Corps while dealing with the situation on Earth, with Garthan Sal protecting the Earth in his stead. He'd be killed in battle down the line though, and transfer his powers to Richard, reinstating him as Nova again. Nova would remain a part of the New Warriors, even joining them as they started filming their own reality show, though he'd get a distress call from Xandar and leave the team just as they were preparing a trip to Stamford, Connecticut that, well, let's just say it didn't end well. Nova would return to space to find Xandar destroyed. Again. This time though, the Nova Corps had been completely annihilated, leaving him as the only surviving member. He'd come into contact with the World Mind, a sentient supercomputer that held all of the Nova Corps history and experience, as well as having access to the Nova Force itself. It had managed to evade the destruction of Xandar, and recognizing Nova as the last remaining Centurion, transferred itself and the entirety of the Nova Force into Richard, giving him a sleek new costume and taking his powers to incredible new heights. This would kickstart something of a resurgence for Nova, becoming one of the faces of what's known as the cosmic sector of Marvel, primarily reserved for spacefaring heroes. He'd engage in many intergalactic conflicts, though he'd also return to Earth every so often, notably having a stint on the Secret Avengers. Back in the early 2010s though, The cosmic side of Marvel was still kind of a niche if you know kind of thing, making it all the more surprising when he was added as a playable character to Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 in late 2011. According to Marvel vs. Capcom 3 producer Ryota Nitsuma, Nova was suggested for the game by Marvel, who'd actually pushed for him as far back as development for the game's initial vanilla release. When development on Ultimate started, Marvel insisted even further that he be added to the game. People that remember the promotional cycle for Ultimate Marvel 3 probably recall that the additional characters for the game were mistakenly leaked by Capcom on the same day the game itself was announced. There were two characters I was personally unfathomably excited for. One was Phoenix Wright, and the other was Nova. Nova was a character I had started reading a couple years prior to Marvel 3's announcement and subsequent release, starting with an event book that I will absolutely be going into a bit later in this video, and it made me a huge fan of the character, despite still being relatively unknown outside of comic books. Nova has the power to absorb and release energy thrown his way, on top of the usual superhuman strength and flight. Upon merging with Worldmind and absorbing the Nova Force in its totality, these powers were immensely amplified, with Nova being able to project nearly limitless energy from his body. Nova's voiced in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 by Troy Baker. I don't have to explain who Troy Baker is, right? He's only one of the most prolific modern voice actors out there. I'm not even going to attempt to list all of his notable voice acting roles out there because we'd be here for literal hours. Some of his roles I'm familiar with though include Yuri Lowell in Tales of Vesperia, Snow in Final Fantasy XIII and its sequels, Pain in Naruto, Vincent and Catherine, Two-Face in the Arkham games, Kanji in Persona 4 and its associated spin-offs, Jake in Resident Evil 6, Joel in The Last of Us, Hawkeye in a few Marvel projects in the mid-2010s, and way more. This is a character I've been waiting a long time to talk about, and I'm raring to go. So without any further ado, before we get into anything, I want to shout out his character theme, which is unquestionably one of the best in a game absolutely filled with bangers. Honestly, all the songs for the newcomers in Ultimate Marvel 3 specifically are great and cut above the themes in the initial release, but this and one other song stand so far above it's not even funny. That other character theme we'll talk about another time since I firmly think it's the best theme in the game. Nova is a solid all-arounder with decent damage, great mobility, and also happens to be a pretty good team player. He has really great mobility between his 8-way dash and his flight mode. His standing light is one of the easiest normals in the game to hit confirm into a full combo with. He has some of the most versatile OTG options in the game, even as a solo character. And the crumple from Nova Strike, or Human Rocket Punch as it's more commonly called, is great for hard tag setups. Spencer in particular is the most popular beneficiary of this synergy. That said, Nova lacks reversals of any kind and has to rely on solid blocks to not get opened up. His atypical zoning moves struggle against characters with better full-screen projectiles like Magneto, and he gets hit a bit harshly by damage scaling. Spencer's a popular partner for him precisely because their synergy covers this particular weakness for Nova. It's not a special move, but I'd just like to point out Nova's jab. It's infamous for being one of the best rapid cancelable lights in the game for hit confirming into a combo, on top of being an okay anti-air in certain situations. Even at the highest level of play, you'll see players use this liberally for hit confirms. It's that good. It does notably whiff on shorter characters though, so keep that in mind. Nova has a grounded command normal, Nova Slam, done with forward and heavy attack. Nova does a big slam, almost like a football spike to his opponent, hitting OTG. Because of how fast Nova recovers after this is one of his most reliable solo combo tools, as he can use it after a hard knockdown for an OTG pickup to continue a combo. Before we get into the meat of his moveset, we should go over Nova's special gimmick in this game. Nova has a mechanic that can greatly power up some of his moves, but at the cost of his remaining red life. Depending on how much red life he has remaining, one of his special moves and even one of his supers will have their damage and general properties boosted. We'll go over each move's buffs as they come along. Nova's first special move is Gravimetric Pulse, done with a quarter circle forward motion and attack.
Gravimetric Pulse! Yes!
Nova does a short-range energy blast that hits directly in front of him. The properties of this attack change depending on the attack strength used. The light version hits directly in front of him. The medium version is angled upwards. And the heavy version is the most interesting, sending out an upright, disc-shaped projectile of sorts. This projectile has a hitbox and can do damage to opponents, but also has a bit of projectile durability as well, making it a solid defensive tool. This is one of the few moves Nova can use Red Life to power up. If he has less than 200k of red health available, it'll power this move up to level 2. The light and medium versions do more damage and gain some beam durability at level 2. And the heavy version does more damage and sends out a bigger projectile. If Nova has more than 200k of red health remaining, he'll be able to do the level 3 versions of these moves. The level 3 versions of the light and medium variation can now do a wall bounce on hit on top of doing more damage.
First attack.
And the heavy version becomes a massive projectile at level 3. These can all be done in the air as well. Nova Strike is done with a quarter circle back and attack.
Yes.
Though Nova Strike is the name of the move, pretty much everyone calls it Human Rocket Punch because of the voice line. Nova charges forward with a flying punch, getting new properties with each attack strength. The medium version wall bounces, while the heavy version causes a crumple state for grounded opponents. The heavy version is one of the cornerstones of the synergy between Nova and Spencer, the latter's slingshot assist allowing for a restance into a crumple for Nova to take advantage of. Next up is Centurion Rush, done with a Dragon Punch motion and attack.
Centurion Arts! Centurion Arts! Air combo!
This is another attack whose properties massively change depending on the strength of the attack button used. The light version is a charging slide. This is another one of Nova's reliable OTG options, comboing pretty cleanly into his supers, or even his normals for a solo pickup if you're quick enough. The medium version is a swift diving kick that will ground bounce the opponent.
Centurion Arts! Centurion Arts!
This one is notable in that it will always ground bounce the opponent, regardless of whether or not you've already used a ground bounce in the combo. The heavy version is a charging tackle followed by an uppercut. This move is super jump cancelable similarly to a standard launcher and can start air combos as well. Pressing attack and special has Nova utilize Energy Javelin.
Energy Javelin!
Nova throws a spear-shaped projectile upwards before it comes crashing down on the opponent's position. This is notably Nova's only standard projectile and his main means of zoning behind his gravimetric bow shield. If it hits an airborne opponent though, it'll cause a ground bounce, making it a great deterrent against people attempting to close in on him through the air. Nova of course also has a flight mode, done with quarter circle back and special attack. Nova's normals are largely flight cancelable and help lower the recovery as well. Nova's first hyper combo is Gravimetric Blaster, done with a quarter circle forward and 2 attacks.
Feel my power! Gravimetric Blaster! Beautiful!
Nova fires a pretty standard beam across the screen. However, this is the other attack he can use Red Life to power up. The level 2 version is slightly bigger and does more damage, and the level 3 version becomes massive and does even more damage. This can also be done in the air as well. Nova's second hyper combo is Supernova, done with a Dragon Punch motion and 2 attacks.
Let's bring it! Power of the Nova Force! Mighty!
Nova surrounds himself with a large glowing spear of energy, dealing multiple hits. This is Nova's most common combo ender, doing great damage, being largely easy to combo into, and being a great DHC tool as well. Nova's final hyper combo is Human Rocket, done with a quarter circle back and 2 attacks.
Speed tackle! Takedown! Maximum! Speed tackle! Takedown! Maximum!
Nova flies forward incredibly fast, striking the opponent 3 separate times. Nova can direct where he'll fly by inputting a direction and an attack on hit. He can fly back as well, allowing you to make this super safe if you so desire. Nova's first assist is the heavy version of Gravimetric Pulse. Keep in mind that Nova's red health mechanic applies to this assist as well and will power it up. His second assist is the medium version of Centurion Rush. This retains the forced ground bounce properties of the point version, making it a great combo extension assist. His third assist is the medium version of Nova Strike. Here are Nova's colors. Nova's second color is based off of his initial Nova costume from when he first joined the New Warriors. His third color is a darker variation of that costume that also appeared in New Warriors' initial run. His fourth color is from Marvel Universe Millennial Visions, a book where different creative teams showcased small snippets of alternate futures for characters in the Marvel Universe. His fifth color is a shout out to Quasar, one of Marvel's longest standing cosmic heroes. His sixth color references Nova 0.0, a Nova from an alternate Earth that came into contact with the main 616 version of Nova. His alternate costume is that of Sam Alexander, the second main Nova in the 616 continuity. Sam's debut in comics actually coincided with the release month of Ultimate Marvel 3, so this was definitely intended brand synergy on Marvel's part here. That said, the costume is actually styled after his appearance in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, which began airing a month or so after the costume's official release. Here are all of Nova's character interactions.
Earth's mightiest heroes, huh? How limited.
I've fought in more wars than you can count.
Ready?
Dude, a living legend. You kinda suck. Jeez, steroids much?
You're gonna regret this in the morning.
It's do or die.
And now, you're just the mayor of Loserville. Sorry, but there's no way I'm losing to an extra from Bandit.
My version of a coonskin cap is basically me chewing on your skull. Ready? Fight!
I'll tell the other Guardians of the Galaxy you put up a good fight. I'll lie. Cute little ninja tricks versus Nova Corps? Come on.
Strider Hiryu, ready for battle.
Ready?
If I were you, I'd hide my face too after that. Act like jerks, your planet gets eaten. It's called karma, dude.
Once we stood as allies, but today you will be annihilated.
It's do or die.
Next time, you might want to change yourself into a decent fighter. Really? I mean, really?
Whoa! Nova! Can I have your autograph?
Ready?
Is it me, or do we have, like, the same helmet?
And here's Nova's ending. Unlike a lot of other characters we've covered so far, Nova has a pretty easy character history to chart out, and as such, it makes for some pretty straightforward comic book recommendations. As far as classic stuff goes, the original 1970s Marv Wolfman run is pretty decent, Wolfman himself being one of the creators of Blade, as well as being one of the architects behind DC's legendary New Teen Titans run from the 80s, as well as Crisis on Infinite Earths. The original New Warriors run started in 1990 is pretty great as well, and showcases Richard reclaiming the Nova identity after Night Thrasher helps recover his powers. I'm a big fan of this run thanks to the earlier issues featuring some awesome Mark Bagley art. For more modern Nova stuff, he had an incredible solo series that started in 2007 from the creative team of Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, usually referred to as DNA by comic fans. DNA in general did fantastic work in their time as a creative duo. Their work on the Legion of Superhero story Legion Lost over at DC being one of my favorite comic books of all time. Nova also had a miniseries written by DNA directly preceding this titled Annihilation Nova, and this was the prelude to another event which the 2007 series more or less spun out from. DNA would go on to basically construct modern cosmic Marvel as we know it today, going on to write events such as Annihilation Conquest and War of Kings, culminating in the story The Thanos Imperative. Nova is a central character in all of these stories, and they form one big, incredible space opera that's highly worth reading. With all that said though, there's one word that's popped up a few times in this video, and twice in the last few minutes if you've been paying attention. It's one word, and yet, it's the title of what's arguably the defining story for not just Nova, but a bunch of cosmic Marvel characters, and is largely responsible for so much of what people know from that side of the universe these days, most notably the modern incarnation of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I skirted a bit around this story earlier because it deserves its own section entirely. This isn't just the best cosmic Marvel story or the best Nova story of all time, but in my opinion, it's the single greatest comic book event to ever come out of Marvel. If you're a Nova fan or a cosmic Marvel enjoyer, you probably already knew what the comic recommendation was going to be as soon as you clicked this video, and to that I say, you have fantastic taste. This video's comic book recommendation is the 2006 crossover event Annihilation, written by Keith Giffen. Annihilation starts with a somewhat unexpected character, Annihilus, a recurring Fantastic Four villain and ruler of the Negative Zone. Annihilus forms an unfathomably massive legion of warships, seemingly with the goal of taking over the universe. This fleet is so far-reaching and massive that it gets its own moniker, the Annihilation Wave. Coming into the universe via a crack where our universe and the Negative Zone meet, the Annihilation Wave begins cutting a swath through the cosmos. The Nova Corps, who had assembled on Xandar to meet about the coming wave, were completely destroyed along with Xandar, Nova being the only surviving member. Another person being held on the planet did survive as well though, Drax the Destroyer. This is the inciting event that leads to Nova absorbing Worldmind and the Nova Force, becoming Nova Prime. The Annihilation Wave continues across the universe, making key tactical strikes, notably the Skrull homeworld, which ends up getting Super Skrull involved, initially only investigating because he learned his son resided on a planet in the path of the Annihilation Wave. As more of the universe gets ravaged, Nova rallies a group of heroes from across the cosmos to form an army known as the United Front to fight Annihilus and the Wave. They learn, however, what Annihilus was seeking this entire time, the power cosmic, which puts the Silver Surfer and friggin' Galactus in his crosshairs. This heralds a multifaceted conflict with multiple factions and characters like Thanos allying himself with Annihilus or working against him, including sworn enemies like Super Skrull and Ronan the Accuser working together, the latter at the time being on the run after being accused of treason. Annihilation is a masterclass in sensible escalation in science fiction comics. I've seen this story jokingly described as a series of escalating events where shit gets increasingly real until shit is at its absolute realest, and as crude as that might sound, this is 100% spot on. This story depicts a cosmic war on a scale that I honestly don't think everything I'm saying about it right now can even do justice. There's actual, real stakes, and when you think things can't get any worse, a new wrinkle comes in to make things harder. What makes it great is that aside from the singular tie-in stories focusing on 4 separate characters, Nova, Super Skrull, Ronan, and Silver Surfer, you need no knowledge of anything going into this story. It was entirely divorced from everything going on in Earth-based Marvel at the time. What's left of the United Front, battered and on the back foot, make one last desperate play, and get a pretty big save that allows them to start making headway against Annihilus, culminating in what I firmly believe might be the single coolest one-on-one fight in Marvel history. Man, I want to show you all how that fight ends so badly, but it's an incredibly satisfying moment that should be experienced organically. But I will say it's generally considered to be the single most badass thing Nova's ever done. I feel like I'm not getting across how genuinely insane Annihilation is as a book. It took a bunch of B and C list characters at best from a corner of Marvel that no one was really using, and crafted one of the greatest high-stake comic book stories of our time out of it. This is peak comic book storytelling here, and even if you've never had an interest in cosmic Marvel or even comics in general, read it. You will not be disappointed. Nova's an example of a returning character that actually kinda glowed up a bit in Infinite. Of the returning characters, Nova is the one that best adapts to Infinite's specific art style, the materials of his costume fitting well with the game's more realistic lighting systems. The color of the Nova Force energy he projects was changed from orange to blue, which isn't inconsistent with the comics. It's been depicted as both colors there. He does get a new voice actor in Infinite though, Ben Diskin. Being a Kingdom Hearts fan, I immediately recognize him as the English voice of young Xehanort, but he was also Mega Man in Mega Man 11, that one dude in Bleach with the pink hair and the funky name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, and a whole bunch of other anime roles. What I didn't know until working on this video though, was that he's been in the voice acting game for a long ass time, being the third and longest serving voice actor for Eugene in Hey Arnold, and being the longtime voice actor for number 1 and 2 in Codename Kid Next Door. I'll admit, topping Troy Baker's high energy performance in the previous game is an impossibly tall order, but I think Diskin does an okay job. Big fan of the delivery on the lines for his level 3 in particular. Nova also has a new theme in Infinite, and yes, it's a massive downgrade from his previous theme. It's not a bad theme at all, but considering what it has to live up to, it just doesn't measure up. Nova translates surprisingly well into Marvel Infinite from both an aesthetic and functionality standpoint. He still has some of the best mobility in the business. Unlike the previous games, all of his special moves can be done in the air now, most notably Energy Javelin. He retains his power-up mechanic, but had it adjusted to fit Marvel Infinite systems more. He finally gets a level 3 super, and his solo damage floor is overall a little higher than in Marvel 3. However, he does lose one of his most reliable tools from the previous game, the shield version of Gravimetric Pulse. And he also loses his human rocket super. Like with most other characters in this game, Nova has a wealth of command normals, and like most returning veterans, a lot of them are medium normals from the previous game repurposed as command normals. Pressing heavy kick twice gives you backstep kick. Nova does a flip kick off the opponent. While this tends to put Nova out of range to follow up with most of his kit, this is flight cancelable, and he can go straight into a staircase flight combo with it. Forward and heavy kick in the air is slash kick. This was his old jumping heavy from Marvel 3. Forward and medium punch in the air is aerial uppercut. This was his jumping medium in Marvel 3. Nova retains Nova's slam from Marvel 3 with a largely similar input, forward and heavy punch. Because Infinite reverts OTGs to how they functioned prior to Marvel 3, this is much less useful as a solo OTG tool this time around compared to Marvel 3. Shooting punch is done with down forward and light punch.
First attack. Ridiculous.
This was his crouching medium in Marvel 3. Moon Tracer kick is done with forward and heavy kick. This was his launcher in Marvel 3. It still launches the opponent in the air, albeit lower than a standard launcher, and is jump cancelable as well. Gravimetric Pulse is done with a quarter circle forward and either punch button. As mentioned before, Nova only has the standard and upwards facing variations this time around, losing the shield. Now's a good time to talk about Nova's power-up mechanic. He retains the ability to power up some of his moves in Infinite, but instead of drawing from his red life, it's now based on how much meter he has stocked up. Having 1 or 2 bars will initiate one level up, and having 3 or 4 bars powers it up fully. This is also better denoted in game as well. The more meter he has stocked up, the more Nova Force energy you'll see emanating from his character model. Blue blazes indeed. Here's level 2 gravimetric pulse.
Gravimetric pulse!
And here's level 3.
Gravimetric pulse!
Nova Strike is done with the quarter circle back and either punch button.
Nova Strike!
The heavy version is a new variation that travels upwards diagonally. This can be flight cancelled and can also easily start up Nova's flight combos. Centurion Rush is done with a quarter circle back and kick.
Centurion Rush!
Like with the last two moves, the heavy version from Marvel 3 is completely absent, retaining the light and medium versions as light and heavy and infinite respectively. This move can also notably be done in the air now. The light version is a swift dive kick,
Centurion Rush! Look out below!
and the heavy version has Nova quickly dive to the ground before doing a sliding sweep. Be aware that the attack's active frames don't start until he's on the ground.
Centurion Rush! Centurion Rush!
Energy Javelin is done with a down down and punch motion this time around.
Energy Javelin! Ridiculous! Energy Javelin! Annoyance!
Perhaps to make up for the lack of shield, this attack's gotten some adjustments from Marvel 3. Most notably, it can be done in the air now. This attack also now benefits from Nova's power-up mechanic, doing more damage and inducing better knockdown states depending on the level. Nova, as expected, also has a flight state done with a quarter circle back and 2 kicks. Most of Nova's kit is flight cancelable as in the last game. Nova's first hyper combo is Gravimetric Blaster, done with a quarter circle forward and 2 punches.
Gravimetric Blaster! Maximum! Gravimetric Blaster! Maximum!
Unlike the previous game, this one isn't affected by Nova's power-up mechanic and instead has normalized damage no matter how much meter Nova has stocked. His second hyper combo is Supernova, done with a quarter circle back and 2 punches.
Maximum! I'll show you! Supernova! Maximum!
This is largely the same as in Marvel 3. Nova loses Human Rocket but gets a level 3 super in its place, Nova Prime, done with a quarter circle forward and 2 kicks.
Nova Prime Power! Maximum! Are you ready? Nova Force Full Throttle!
Personally speaking, this is up there with Sigma and Winter Soldier Special Level 3 as my favorite cinematic super in the game. Here are Nova's colors. I've seen it suggested that color 2 is a shout out to Adam Warlock, but I think the lack of yellow makes it a bit closer to Magus, Warlock's evil counterpart. Color 3 is loosely based on his old Kid Nova costume from the early issues of New Warriors. Nova's alternate costume is named Nova Prime, and though that is what he's referred to in-universe after absorbing Worldmind, this costume is an original design for Marvel Infinite. The second color seems to be original, though it vaguely resembles Iron Man's color scheme, I suppose. The third color is based on Ronan the Accuser. The fourth color is based on Sam Alexander's Nova costume. Here are all of Nova's character interactions.
Nova!
Better watch my back with this one.
Nova!
I may work with you, Thanos, but I'll never trust you.
Nova!
Gamora, will you fight with me? I spread like a plague, so it's my job to burn them out.
Unknown species. I will dissect you after I've defeated you.
Rocket, you done messing around yet?
Introducing the Web Warriors! Still gotta work on that name.
Show me the power of the Hobbit.
Let's show them real power.
Dream Team, all right!
Watch out! Here comes the Spider-Man!
The Phalanx and the Annihilation Wave, and I'll beat you!
Those who control the stones control the universe.
Blue blazes! So this is your true form?
Do you think you can defeat us?
Ready!
You know, I've always found it interesting that despite Marvel pushing for him in Marvel 3 and getting into Infinite, a game very unsubtle about trying to get Marvel Cinematic Universe synergy going, Nova is one of the few characters that actually hasn't shown up there. Sure, the Nova Corps and Zenda are featured in the Guardians films, but Richard himself hasn't shown up yet. Maybe there were plans that fell through at some point, or maybe they just really wanted him in the game. Nova himself hasn't been in very much else video game-wise outside of comics. He's in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, though as an unplayable character, and was also in Marvel Heroes, where he was also voiced by Troy Baker. Eagle-eyed fans might also recognize Nova as one of the characters that come to life from statue form when you beat Thanos in Marvel Superheroes. He is one of the playable characters in the upcoming Marvel Cosmic Invasion though, sporting his long hair New Warriors design from the 90s. Cosmic Invasion is looking to be an adaptation of Annihilation as well, so yeah. All in all, I'm happy one of my favorite comic book characters got into my favorite fighting game series and was represented pretty well. And seriously, go read Annihilation. Literally peak Marvel content in my opinion. That's going to do it for this video. As always, thanks for watching, and a special thanks to the patrons that support the channel. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.